Planning, complete streets and finance meeting focused on community. My name is Brittany Whitehill, and I'm a senior planner with the Los Altos Planning Division and the project manager for the general plan update, and I will be presiding over tonight's meeting. I'm joined by Stephanie Williams, Development Services Director, and Xiomara Aguirre, Assistant Planner. And tonight we're also joined by Andrew Hill from Dyed & Bhatia, the urban and regional planning firm assisting the city with the general plan update. Before we begin, I'd like to outline how the meeting will be structured. First, we'll take public comments on any items not on the agenda. Next, we will move into the discussion item, beginning with a presentation from Andrew. After the presentation, each commission will come to the front of the room for approximately 30 minutes of guided discussion. A quorum will be established for each commission prior to the beginning of their discussion. Once all commissions have completed their discussions, we will open the floor for public comments on the agenda item. We will now move into oral communications for any item not on the agenda. This portion of the meeting is reserved for members of the public who wish to address the city on any matter not listed on tonight's agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and state law prohibits the city from discussing or taking action on any non-agendized items. If you would like to speak on a non-agenda item, could you please complete a speaker card and turn it in? Any speakers for non-agendized items? Looks like we have none, so we can move into our discussion item. So item number 1 is a study session on the community vision and guiding principles for the Los Altos Comprehensive General Plan Update. So we have a presentation from Andrew, if you're ready.
Sharing privileges.
Okay. Let us sort out some technical difficulties real quick.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. As Brittany said, my name is Andrew Hill, and I'm with Dyed & Bhatia. We're the planning and design firm that's assisting the city with the general plan update. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation tonight and to hearing all your ideas about vision and priorities for the future. So the vision and guiding principles, really developing them as a fundamental first step in updating the general plan. They are going to describe the kind of community that residents and businesses want to see in the future. Obviously, community. Sorry.
It's too hard to see out here.
Sure. So I'll just wait then.
Oh, on the I can reposition the screen so it's visible to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not with any of us sitting here with their heads in the way, so it's not possible to project. No, it's not. Only with TV people. Okay.
Maybe the staff could also share.
Yeah. And we can move the.
Short people in front.
All right. Well, as I say, developing the guiding principles is really a fundamental first step in updating the general plan. The vision and the guiding principles are really going to describe the kind of community that Los Altos residents and businesses want to see in the future. So essential for that is community engagement, and we kicked off a multi-pronged engagement strategy back in January. Part of that strategy involves meeting with city commissions to hear input on vision and guiding principles. And so we've set up 2 study sessions for that purpose. The first study session is tonight, where we'll hear from the Planning Commission, the Complete Streets Commission, and the Finance Commission. And then on Monday, there'll be a second study session set up to hear from the Environmental Commission, the Library Commission, the Parks, Arts, Recreation, and Culture Commission, and the Senior Commission. Unfortunately, the Historical Commission was not able to achieve a quorum, so city staff will work to get their input through another avenue. But the objectives for tonight's study session are really twofold. First of all, I'd like to provide you all with some background on the general plan and the process for updating it. But really, the main event tonight is to hear from commissions about shared values, priorities for the future, and ideas that can inform the vision and the guiding principles for the general plan. So I have a quick presentation to set things up, starting with some general plan background. You may know already that every city in California is required to have a general plan to adopt it so that it serves as the long-range, the city's primary long-range planning document. It's a high-level policy tool, and in turn, it's implemented through a variety of different mechanisms. So you may have specific plans for certain areas of town, the zoning code, and capital improvements. And by law, the zoning code or any specific plans have to be consistent with the general plan, which is really the primary overarching planning tool. So the general plan should be built on a shared vision for the future, and it should identify actions needed to realize that vision. It covers the whole of the city, so all properties, both privately owned and publicly owned, that are within the city limit, as well as properties in the sphere of influence. And the sphere of influence is outside, it's unincorporated land adjacent to the city that could someday be annexed into the city. And so in Los Altos' case, there's that small gray area that you see in the southwest is the sphere of influence. But the general plan will deal with all of the city and the sphere of influence. The general plan is used by city officials, like city staff, or the planning commission when reviewing proposed development projects to make sure that they're consistent with the general plan. And it's used by the city council when making decisions on capital investments. By law, the general plan must address 8 topics that really affect all aspects of community life. So everything from land use, circulation, housing, but also conservation, open space, safety, noise, and environmental justice. Additionally, policies in the general plan can address topics of local importance. So, for example, community health, sustainability, historic preservation. These can be woven throughout the general plan. Why update the general plan? Well, Los Altos' current general plan dates back to 2002 and had a planning horizon of 2020. Since 2002, the city has incrementally updated some chapters of the general plan, but it hasn't been comprehensively updated in 25 years. And so it really needs to be updated now to ensure that it aligns with community priorities, emerging technologies, demographic changes, and new state law. As I'm sure you're aware, since 2002, the world has changed a lot, right? There's economic changes. If you think about the shift to internet shopping or changing work preferences in terms of offices and workspaces, technological issues. I mean, autonomous vehicles are already here. Ride sharing and transportation apps are changing the way we get around. Smart city technology too. And then there's social and demographic change. Los Altos, like other communities across the U.S., have an aging population. There's increased diversity and changing generational preferences as well. And then climate change, and adaptation and mitigation strategies. So all of these factors are driving the need to update the general plan. And the time is right for the community to come together, develop a shared vision for the city to put in place a new set of goals and policies to steer the community towards that vision. And so the general plan update is going to be completed over a period of about 2 years in 4 distinct phases, and this graphic is showing those phases. The first phase is really about understanding issues and opportunities from the community perspective and developing a shared vision for the future of Los Altos. That will necessarily involve extensive community output, including meetings like tonight. Then at the end of phase 1, we'll bring forward the vision and the guiding principles to the city council. And when they approve it, then we'll move into phase two. And phase two is all about exploring different options and alternatives for land use, for transportation, for community health, for sustainability, all the options that can achieve the vision that came out of phase one. Through phase two, again, with extensive community outreach, we'll work to establish a shared consensus around this preferred scenario, which again, at the end of phase two, will be brought forward to the City Council for approval. And then after that, we'll move into phase three, which is when we really roll up our sleeves and write the updated general plan, including goals and policies. At the end of phase three, phase three also involves preparation of an environmental impact report. And at the end of phase three, both the draft general plan and the environmental impact report will be released for public review, and then we move into public hearings for adoption. So let me talk a little bit about the vision and the guiding principles now. As I say, they're really a key first step for updating the general plan. They identify the key themes and priorities. Taken together, the vision and the guiding principles should describe the kind of community, the kind of place that Los Altos residents and businesses want their city to be in 2050. The guiding principles are intended as broad aspirational statements. And in turn, when we get in the future, in the later phase of the project, they will inform the more detailed goals and the policies in the plan. And as I say, at the end of phase one, we'll present the draft vision and guiding principles to the City Council. The purpose of the meeting tonight is really just to collect input. So here are some examples to give you a sense of what a guiding principle looks like. These are from other communities. Of course, the guiding principles for Los Altos will be tailored to Los Altos and based on input from the community collected through a variety of different avenues. But to give you a sense of what we're striving for is, here's one example. The city's unique sense of place comes from its friendly, welcoming people. It's a family-friendly community where generations grow up and grow old together. So it's describing the kind of place that the city will be. Or use sustainable development and land use planning practices that provide for the needs of existing residents and businesses while preserving choices for future generations. So that's describing how the city will make decisions in the future. And so crafting the vision and the guiding principles is really going to be done on the basis of extensive community input. As I mentioned, we kicked off the engagement strategy back in January. We have an online survey that's been open for a few months. We have 450 responses so far. It's open until the end of April, so if you haven't taken it yet, please do, and let your friends and neighbors as well. But that's one avenue for collecting input. We had a community open house meeting on Saturday, April 11th. We had about 100 community members come out to share their input, learn about the general plan process. That was a big success. And then we've been trying to meet people where they are at events and places around the community. So we went to the adult 50-plus luncheon in February. We went to the family dance party at Woodland Branch Library, the Choco Super Stroll, and the Spring Easter Egg Hunt to meet people where they are and get input that can inform. And then the study session tonight and the one again on Monday are just another avenue for collecting input along with all these other ways. So again, going over the study session format, each of the commissions tonight will be invited to come up and discuss and provide their input one by one. So we'll start with the Planning Commission, then next the Complete Streets Commission, and then finally the Financial Commission. Each group will have about 30 minutes to discuss and provide their input. We're not going to hold you strictly to that, but in order to keep an orderly meeting and make sure that the other groups don't have to wait too long, we'd like to try and keep a targeted discussion to about 30 minutes. And the discussion will be facilitated by city staff, and time will be provided for public comment for community members who are not on the commission to also have their say. And so as you make your comments tonight, there's a couple of questions that would be helpful to hear from. So in terms of desired input, here are some questions. We can leave them up on the screen as you make your comments. But what are the defining features and characteristics of Los Altos that the general plan should seek to preserve and enhance? What do you think are some of the key challenges that the city should plan for in the coming years? what assets or opportunities should the city seek to leverage for the benefit of the community through the general plan update? And what's your vision for the future of Los Altos, and what programs or projects do you think could help advance that vision?
Yeah, so I have a question, and this is extremely high level in what you presented before this slide, almost at the level of mission statements, but formed principles. And coming into this, when I read the pre-reading, one of the questions I had in my own mind was, as a commission member, it appeared to me that our role here was to really talk about what is the purview of our commission, not an overview of, in general, what we think those high-level things should be across the board. And my expectation, I just want to make sure that's your expectation as well, is that when we're on the Complete Streets Commission, we're going to be talking exclusively about the things that we have responsibility for now.
I think that should be your primary guide. I think we actually welcome that detail and that perspective. I think that's really helpful. But I don't think you necessarily need to be absolutely limited to it. You can also provide, provide bigger picture comments as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And then just quickly a look ahead to next steps. And so, as I say, tonight is the first of 2 study sessions. We have another study session on Monday. The online survey is open until April 30th, and so we'll continue collecting input. But once that's received, then when we'll start to process it, we'll put together a draft of the vision and guiding principles. That will go to the Planning Commission in June for their feedback. A public meeting, of course, so community members are welcome to attend and provide input at that stage as well. And then, based on the commission feedback, we'll take it to the council in July, and that'll be the close of phase 1. So, with that,
All right, well, thank you, Andrew. So we would like to invite the planning commission up. We'll start off with planning commission, some guided discussion.
Just to be clear, there won't be any public comment to all 3 commissions.
Correct, so all commissions will speak and then we'll take public comment.
Did you hear what we said?
No, anywhere's fine. And I will reposition this so you guys can see.
Yes.
Before we get started, we do need to establish a quorum. So Xiomara, would you please take roll? Commissioner Beninato.
Here.
Commissioner Mensinger.
Here.
Commissioner Roth.
Here.
Commissioner Steinle.
Here.
Vice Chair Roche.
Here.
And Chair Ahi. Chair Ahi is not here, but we do have a quorum. Right, do you want to take it away?
sure. Well, I think maybe do we want to go one by one and address each question? Could do it that way.
Maybe we should start off if you want to introduce ourselves, since I don't think that you've had a chance to
That can work.
meet Andrew. So, Commissioner Ross,
Yeah, maybe just a quick introduction, name, what part of the city you live in, tell a little bit about your connection to Los Altos.
Yeah, I'm Daphne Ross. I live in the Highlands. So South Los Altos, lived there since 2016.
Susan Metzinger, I live near Covington School. I've been here 28 years. It's my second term on the commission. Prior to that, I was on the downtown building committee and the community center.
Joe Beninato. I live near Rancho in the infamous District 3 in the upcoming election. And lived here 26 years now and do a lot of stuff around the community volunteering right now.
Richard Roach, been here 30 plus years.
Welcome.
Finally, 17 years, I'm in the far northwest corner of the city, far northwest and west of the
We have pretty good geographic diversity.
As far from Daphne, yeah.
Fair.
Wow. Wow.
Well, let's maybe do it this way. I'll throw out the question. I don't know if we need to go one by one. Why don't we just keep it more informal? But the first question is, what would you all say are some of the defining features and characteristics of Los Altos that the general plan should seek to preserve?
Defining questions that you're seeking to preserve? Well, the village atmosphere that is probably in name only today. It's, I think, it is a big part of Los Altos. And it's not just downtown that's a village. If you think about it, Loyola Corners is a village. And then Rancho is almost a little village. In South Los Altos, you've got Homestead. So there's little villages here. And to keep the uniqueness of them, where you go in the stores and people know you, recognize you, and say you can't buy anymore. The uniqueness of the community, and then again, when you're down, same thing, when you're downtown, you see people, you live here and you shop here. You hate to see that wrecked, and yet at the same time, you have to look to the future. And we see that happening, particularly on First and Second Street, with the new condominiums, all of which is created and I think helped downtown really blossom. But not everybody wants to live downtown. And to keep that, and yet this unique community aspect that we have, the bicycling, kids bicycle schools, and yet we have some issues with transportation, and maybe that is addressed by the circulation element of the general plan. And the safety falls into that same aspect. As we look to the future, we see more Ubers in town, or Waymos rather. We have a Waymo that is occasionally parks on our street where there's a vacant lot and it parks in front of it. And so it doesn't bother anybody. And it's just sitting there and maybe gets a call, has to go somewhere. But it's with a green community that we have, and you don't have any bus transportation here. Here, if you have the Waymos, then you can call a Waymo. So circulation is a very important, and keeping us all with the green population that we have. I could probably go on, but a little start.
Okay, I guess I'm next. I'm going to kind of meld them a little bit together. It kind of makes sense, much like Richard did. I think historically we have been the village feel. And as Richard said, that has sort of gotten blown up for a lot of reasons. Partly we have to deal with the realities of state housing law. And I think, the council worked very hard to preserve R1 zoning while still meeting our housing requirements. And I think most citizens wanted that, which is why they went that direction. So I think we have to look at anything we do. If that is still what people want to preserve as R1 housing, so you don't have a 5-story apartment building built next to you, we need to try to do what we can to preserve that. Again, if that's what the community wants, it's a choice. But I think there's no way we can ignore what the state is mandating. That's, I think, one of the key challenges, obviously. The other, and I may get some pushback on this one, we are a expensive, wealthy community. And we're an aging population as well. I mean, school enrollment is way down. And it would be nice if this could somehow be more affordable for more people, whether it's people with families, whether it's people who work here and support us. I personally would like to see more opportunities for that. And again, that runs a little bit against the village feel because they're not going to be living in our own houses, but we need to provide something. I can go on, but I'll stop. I don't know. Somebody jump in. Come on, Eric, you want me to jump in?
There's so many things to say. I mean, for number one specifically, I would love to preserve green space. I mean, I think that having a lot of trees, having places carved out for parks and being able to preserve those. I mean, parks exist in big urban areas and parks exist in suburban areas. So being able to, for people to have access to green space, I think is important. And I would love to see, I feel like that's a defining characteristic of Los Altos that I would like to see, to enhance, preserve and enhance. Vision,
And we're actually under park compared to comparable cities.
Just jumping off of what Susan said about it kind of touches on number 4, the vision. I would love for this to be a multi-generational community. So whatever it means to make that happen so that young families can live here, older people can live here, people can age in their houses, new people can buy houses or apartments or whatever it is. I would love to see that happen.
Gentlemen,
Well, you maybe go first, Joe, if you wish. The 5-minute Marine and everybody.
Yeah, well, how much time do we have? So
set the timer.
I agree with everything that's been said so far, and I would go further on what Anthony said around preserving and creating green space. It's a little while since I've had young kids, but there are people here who currently have young kids who are friends of mine, and the comments in the community right now around some of the public parking lots by people who are many decades removed from having young kids. Oh, well, you just cross Foothill Expressway with your toddlers and go to the park over there.
With no sidewalks.
Yeah, no sidewalks. And I think I saw something recently. It was like 7 lanes. It's like, if you add up everything, it's intense. Same with San Antonio. Oh, you could go over to the community center. No, you can't. Like, it's not possible. I was talking to a friend about biking with 2 toddlers. Many of us have probably done that. Do you go first and hope that they follow you and don't get clipped by a car when you're crossing San Antonio? Or do you go last and hope that they don't run into oncoming traffic when they're going across? So I think we really need to think about family friendly and the future of the community, not the past of the community. This argument to save asphalt is just ludicrous in my opinion, especially when you think about some of the mechanisms that might be used. So I was talking with somebody else recently, a resident, about what if you want to take a kid downtown and put out a blanket and let your kids run around? Where would you go do that? There's literally 0 green space in the downtown area to go do that. And if somebody knows of one, I'd love to hear about it. So, the ideas around putting a park downtown, yes, you could go to Shoot Park, and yes, you could go to Lincoln Park, and yes, you could go elsewhere. But, what a great asset that would be. So families for sure. I do think about, Richard brought up Ubers and Lyfts and Waymos. Kids today don't get driver's licenses. Like, I don't know if people who had a teenager recently, I forget what the percentage is. I think it's 50% do not get driver's licenses. I have two adult children. Neither of them owns a car. So something's going on here, right? And they live near public transportation. They take Caltrain or buses, or in one case have an electric bike. So this world is changing. And as we think about, I think the Complete Streets people probably would focus on some of that, but thinking about multimodal transportation, walking safely, biking safely, spots for Ubers and Lyfts and autonomous cars to pick up people, things that we are not really ready for right now. And I think it would be great if we did some of that. The other thing I want to talk about is, Susan mentioned, it's the big challenge. I think the single biggest challenge is the change that is being mandated to us, right? With state housing law, period. Like everything else kind of is dwarfed in comparison because it's creating a schism in the city right now with some of the stuff that's going on. And we have a choice of either letting the state tell us what's going to happen or managing it ourselves. And I commend the council for attempting to manage it themselves or ourselves instead of, just letting change happen to them. So, we need to take our local values, which we all love the village aspect of it. But when weird things like lawsuits happen, you end up with 5-story buildings on Main Street that are mandated by a judge instead of deciding what's going to happen to you. And that's exactly what's happening at 40 Main Street right now. So, how do we deal with that? Preserve character while adapting to the realities of today. Not only the housing requirements, climate resilience, safer multimodal circulation. I wrote a bunch of stuff down earlier. Just dealing with those, I think, are going to be some of our biggest challenges. So I'll stop there for now, and we can talk more about some of this in the other questions.
Can I, before we jump to, can I ask a clarifying question just about green spaces? When you all talk about green spaces, are you talking about specifically about parks? Are you talking about trails,
The
trees?
only thing Los Altos can agree on is trees. That's all anybody needs.
I disagree with that. Don't always agree on those.
That was the tree guy.
I love trees. I also love green grass for people to sit on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was in Arizona recently at a mall, and I had to do a Zoom call, and I saw 200 people using this green space that they had created in the middle of the mall with, it was a little tacky with palm trees and fountains and other stuff. But the play structure there, it was a mound of AstroTurf. And it was, I don't know, it was maybe 15 feet wide. These two little kids spent 20 minutes running up and down that mound. They run up the mound, they giggle, they run back down the mound and grab mom's leg. They run back up, lather, rinse, repeat. And so, that there were blankets out everywhere, and toddlers were meeting other toddlers from people that, families that they had never met before. I just thought it was a really wonderful space that they had created right next to a restaurant and a bunch of clothing stores that I am not familiar with. So, that kind of stuff would be really great. And we do have some great parks in the city already. But, if you think about downtown in particular, yes to trees and let's not cut down our huge trees, but more green space. Accessible green space would be great.
And I'd like to add to that. I think for the parks are great, but there aren't enough of them. We are under park relative to other cities. Also, people who go to the park are only the families, right? You have kids and that's what you do to let them run around. It would be great, in my mind, to have a space where all ages might come in and spend 10 or 15 minutes in, or maybe half an hour there. And I think back to, if you look at places like Barcelona, which has done an amazing job of creating green spaces in the city that were asphalt jungles.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful, and there are hundreds of people hanging out there, and they have them all throughout the city, and many other European cities have done that. I think that would be aspirational for us.
Right.
I don't think we need hundreds, but we need.
But I wonder if that ties back to what initially, when you were talking about the village feel, you were talking about, shopping, a place for people shopping at each other, but it seems like it's also a green space where people can go and meet each other. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, it's just. If you look back and you look today, downtown is still pretty much the same, except First Street with the 4- and 5-story buildings. And yes, we said, there are no parks there, and with the exception of crossing 4 lanes of freeway to get to Show Park or the streets green along University. If there was a park downtown, and you can do this, and Susan said something, housing for those in need. Housing, not everybody can live in a $4 million house or a $2 million house. Not everybody has the kind of economics. And we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago about an encampment issue in Los Altos. Those people don't have housing. And there's has to be housing. And housing maybe for seniors. We have a couple, we have one down in Los Altos that I can think of off the top of my head.
The terraces.
The terraces. In fact, there's another one down off of Los Altos Avenue too. But we have a graying population, and not everybody wants to live in a 2-story house because you're walking up and downstairs. There's a lot of things we need. What can we afford? What can we practically do? What can we put in the general plan that really direct the youth, the younger families in town to help us get there? And we haven't heard what Eric wants to. I think the green issue that I think was just fabulous. Just the idea of having it and focus on this. Whether you'd like the park or not, it may or may not occur. The fact that there could be green downtown where the center, where the population is growing, because we've built 150 condominiums in the last year or 2 years. We have a lot of new housing down there. And what do they have? They have a little balcony about this big. You can't put a grill on it. It's about this big. You get some fresh air coming in, and that's it. And if they want to go for a walk, they can go downtown, as you said, sit on a mound of dirt, and the kids can play. And because there's kids in these condos, and there's adults, and there's a place where they can go hang out, put your feet up on a park bench and enjoy it. You
And you
know,
look at how popular the pop-up parks were that we had downtown several years ago. I think that was probably pre-COVID or maybe it was during COVID, but those were very popular.
Yeah.
I think there's two things too. I think green space is one, and I think placemaking is the second. I think you can of course build community around something that's not green, and I think that the city can consider that as well. I think green space is really important, but I also think place. I mean, one of the things people like, I think, about Los Altos is that it's a sense of place. Like people feel a sense of place, and the active creation of placemaking, I think, is important.
I'd throw out there teenagers as well, like a place for teens to go. The second story lattice outside of Safeway, where the teenagers all hang out, is a bizarre creation that they, everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? And yeah, there's Spot Pizza and there's the arcade and a couple of other places, but like they want to be away from their parents. We all know we were there once. But we also want them to be safe. And so, what can we do specifically placemaking around teens? Those who maybe aren't driving yet, maybe they bike downtown or skateboard or whatever. What could they do?
and Eric, we haven't heard from Eric yet.
That's the goal.
When you're. You said it.
It's still active.
The safety. And the streets commission has done some really good jobs of the bike lanes. We've got, it's clearly marked, but safety is really important for the kids. A few years ago on our street, 17 houses, a lot of kids, the parents would they would walk the kids to the 3 blocks of school. And now they're a little more safe because we have some crossing guards. And now the parents don't have to walk them, but the kids can ride their bikes to school. And the safety element is so much a part of this, to do these things that we want to do, so.
I think you started to segue into the next question, but Eric, if you have something to say
I
about.
do. First of all, with respect to the grills on the balconies, the fire code forbids it and the insurance companies have a cow. So it will not happen. Period. Okay, I speak as the president. I came into this and I'm still thinking these are the wrong questions.
Okay.
Everything here and the problem that you showed us of people who have done things is what we have done in the past and it has failed. We need to look to the future, not the past. Los Altos specializes in a form of toxic nostalgia. Everything, as I've said this. You write that down, toxic nostalgia. As I've said before, and I will say again, Mayberry is dead. Los Altos is changing, we are moving on, and that's what this should be focusing on, the future. And you've heard it here. People aren't talking about the way things used to be, but about the way things should be going forward. And I think that's what's wrong with these questions. They don't look at the future, they look at the past. Okay, Los Altos is changing. Los Altos is not an island. Los Altos is one city in a whole slew of cities. The difference between them is on the map, not necessarily otherwise. So that's one of the things we have to think about. We are part of a region, a very large, rich region, and we have to contend with that. We have to deal with, as my colleagues have said, with Sacramento. I kind of like what they do, but that's just the lawyer in me. But we have to look and see where we want to be in 20 years, not where we were 20 years ago. So I think that's what's wrong with these questions and where I would like to redirect things. That requires a word I had used before in talking about various developments, imagination. we have to figure out what we want it to look like. Not specifically, but what we want it to look like. And then perhaps how do we get there, or can we get there? But those are the guiding principles. What do we want, not the way it looked in 1968, but the way it looks today and the way it will look in 20 years. And then you've heard that already here. I mean, I concur with much of what has been said here, except about the fire pits on.
Well, I'm just saying you couldn't barbecue over there,
Yeah.
and you, not that you can't, but I mean, you shouldn't,
Yeah.
and you can't.
No, but no, I think that, what you see here is they have said what I think needs to be more explicit, right? Looking towards the future and planning, we are the planning commission after all, we don't plan very much. But that's what we need to look at, not at what was, not the fantasies of, we'll fill in the blank of local control, the fantasies of various things like that. But rather what we want Los Altos to be within its context. Okay, and its context is Cupertino and Palo Alto and all the other towns that are around here. And the peninsula in general and California, that is our context. Okay, and I think that if we lose sight of that, we end up with the problem that you showed us with the different family-friendly place. That to me is a complete waste of time and paper and should never be done. And I would like to see that not done in our general plan. The general plan is our looking forward at what will be. Not specifically, that's what the code is for, but as our statement of what we would like it to reflect. And that means we're all going to have to think long and hard and use our imaginations to figure what this is going to be. I've asked this question before of people, what do you think Los Altos will look like in 5 years or 10 years? And they tend to say, well, pretty much the same. It's going to be much more urbanized. It's going to be much denser in population, already is. Okay, we have to do something about parking. Parking, friends, by the way, is an amenity. It is not a right. It is not an entitlement. It is purely an amenity. We need to be able to figure out how to get people around if they're not taking their cars, how to get them out of their cars. And it's the Big Streets Commission, I get to do that part. But that's what we have to be thinking about in the general plan. And it has to be in all parts of the general plan, not just the land use and circulation and those things. Okay. That's what has to be the underlying consideration. So getting people around, getting more people, okay, dealing with the fact that we have 6.9 something acres, square miles of land, completely surrounded by other places, so we can't go out. We have no vacant land. We have basically nothing to do except to go up. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, how are we going to do that? And the sacred R1 housing, well, my opinion is it's dead.
So you're effectively answering my second question very nicely, talking about the challenges that are coming, that you're talking about challenges getting around, dealing with the state laws and the context of a growing region. I think you've also
regional requirements, not just that it's growing, but that we have to respond to the requirements of our neighbors as well. Okay. And we can't pretend that somehow there's a law. And one of the problems, I will say, one of the problems with Los Altos historically has been in the sense that we are somehow walled off from the rest of the world. That's not true. It's not ever going to be true. It never was really true, but it's not going to be true. And we have to face that reality. And that's what this general plan will give us an opportunity to do.
And you mentioned just now state laws that Susan mentioned and Joe. I can't tell you how many planning commission meetings we've had where we didn't really want to approve a project. And I can remember saying, I really don't want to vote for this, but I don't have a choice because we're mandated by the state to do this, this, and that. And unless we can change Sacramento people, then we've got to deal with it and the vision that Eric so strongly presents and agree. So your job is not what's going down, is how can we fit in this area we have limited, maintain what we have, adding with the green space, but yet adhering to housing and keeping this village. It's just a wonderful place to live. I mean, of all the places that we've all traveled to, the European cities and the cities in the United States and Boston, to have this wonderful small city, it can't be beat, you know? And we wanted to maintain it, but we got to move ahead. You know, we're no longer driving the Model A. You remember the Model A?
Yes, I did. I saw it in the picture one time. You were driving.
The Model B.
The key challenges, I think one of the biggest challenges is represented in this room. There's a schism right now between people who want to keep us in the past and people who want to move us forward. And it's a very complicated topic. Like we say R1 zoning. I'll bet you 95% of the people in the city don't know what that is. That is residential zoning for people who don't know.
Single
Single family
family.
homes.
Single family. And so, you know, if we've seen communities all around us end up in builder's remedy, which I think, you know, could be where we're heading. I personally would prefer not to have a, you know, many story, you know, we see in Palo Alto 17-story, we see in Menlo Park, what's the one at Sunset? Is it like 80 stories or something crazy? Whatever it is. And so, you know, and the disinformation that's going on right now is disgusting. It is everywhere. It's at the grocery stores, it's in the paper, it's online, it's emails. And you know, I'll give you a simple example. 3-story parking structure in Los Altos. I'll bet you most people don't even know what the white dot parking program in Los Altos is. It's the spaces with the white dots where employees can park. Well, if the city were to put in a 3-story parking structure, the ground floor would be for people who want to come downtown and park, just as they do today, at the same level they do. The city already got rid of the council already said, we don't want to go underground because of safety and cost and several other reasons. The upper 2 floors, I believe, if I understand it correctly, would be allocated to employee parking.
Which is similar to what Palo Alto does.
And you know, I've worked in Palo Alto for many years. So all those employees who are now parking in various surface street spots around town would be concentrated into the upper 2 stories. Their cars would be out of the sun and away from birds, and you know, you can imagine solar on the top protecting all this stuff, and the residents could still park downtown. And so, yeah, it's a little scary. And I know some people here hold asphalt sacred, you know, and what is it? Toxic nostalgia. But like, you know, if it's done well, and you know, I hear other things. I want to pull up at the dry cleaners. I want to pull up at the post office. Well, what if we put in a bunch of 15-minute parking spots along the alley where you could pull up at the post office or the dry cleaners or Lulu's to go get some tacos or whatever you want. And you could run and get your stuff along with the loading zones that we have there. So I would challenge us to think about possibilities in the future and what we might be able to do, as opposed to, oh, I want to park in that asphalt lot behind the post office because I've always parked there. Well, you can't always get a spot in that lot. So, you know, let's at least consider the possibilities. And once we understand all the facts, then we can weigh those and say, you know, these facts don't make sense. Like, this is dumb. Let's not do this, or whatever it might be. But right now, there's a huge. This reminds me actually of some of the school district stuff that's gone on over the last 30 years, and we're heading right back into that direction right now. And you know, I will just say to the residents, if you want builder's remedy in this town, and you want people building large structures next to your single family home, some might want that, then you know, we should keep going in a certain direction.
But it's not just that, it's also R1 zoning maybe go away. Many cities have eliminated R1 zoning.
Yeah.
And it would not be surprising to me if the state said no more. So I think you have to be realistic looking out into the general plan. It is, I don't know, you guys have probably a better sense what the probability is that cities will no longer be able to do R1 zoning, but we should be prepared for that.
I would argue that already we can't, but that's.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but in any event, I want to second what Joe was talking about and what Susan was just mentioning, and point out one of the things that should perhaps give a rhythm to what we're doing is the specific elements. because each of those specific elements, we talk about housing because that's what we do, and land use because that's what we do. But the safety element, how do you get out of town if there's a fire? Okay, that's one we've already contended with, and it's a problem. But that's also a regional problem, because if you're in South Los Altos, you might head for Cupertino, and what are they doing? Okay, how do you get out of Cupertino if there's a, that sort of thing? We're not the island. When you come to economic justice, which is not really, I mean, it is a big problem, but it's a larger sort of structural problem. But that too has to do with our neighbors, okay? And all of the elements are specific things that are regional as well. And when you get to things like the complete streets, they have to contend with federal rules. And it's not just that we may have to from good way, but it's not just state rules, but the federal rules. Much of what they have to contend with is actually imposed on them by the US government, by the Department of Transportation. So all of these elements work in exactly that same way. They're not separate from each other, and they're not separate from some part of the world. And I think that's the mission statement, right? Not everybody will feel better if they have family in grass, but that we are figuring out where we fit in our general ecosystem here. Okay. And that's what it requires, the imagination, but it also requires, as Susan was pointing out, a certain degree of practicality and accepting the world as it is, not the way it was, or the way you think you remember it was, or the way you wish it had been. Okay. And I think there's far too much of that in Los Altos.
I
need to wrap up.
wanted to add one more
I think
thing.
we're really close to.
Yes.
One more thing as a challenge to you. I would be asked how many people don't belong to one of the commissions to stand up. How many people from the public are here tonight to hear about this? I live on a street with 17 houses, and I bet half of them don't even have a clue that there's a general plan issue before us. Some do because they know me. So the city's got to figure out how to get the general plan issue to our residents so that they can come out and be part of this, because the general plan is for the residents. It's not for a couple of commissions making decisions as to what we think you should be doing whenever. But we got to figure out how to get the people out.
Perhaps more provocative mailings.
Yeah.
The mailings are pretty, okay.
Yeah.
Do a survey, and you've been going to events that are really focused on families other than the over 50 group. And there's a whole bunch of population that doesn't do that. But if you were to pose, like, I don't know, I'm not a marketing person, but say something, do you want this or do you want that? What do you think about this or
Sure.
that? That would get people's attention.
Sure. What I would say is we're early stages in the process. I think you have to start, casting a wide net. As we move into the second phase, which is about alternatives and exploring alternatives, that's when the rubber hits the road. We start to ask meatier questions. But the structure is intentionally sort of starting off casting wide.
I mean, I would just share, I know we had to rezone property called Rancho, which is very popular, local little shopping area. Those residents claimed they'd never heard about this. The reality is it had been discussed in the housing element 2 years, like something like that.
And at the meetings.
Yeah, at meetings that nobody knew about, nobody chose to involve themselves in. I would hate to have that happen.
Right. Well, I would certainly welcome input from any and all of you about how to reach out to people. I mean, I think, we had 100 people come to a community meeting, which is pretty good in this day and age. I was pretty happy with that. We've had 450 people take the survey. I'm sure we can do better, but we did actually, picking up on an intentional effort to get to families, because they don't necessarily come out to a meeting. They're not going to bring their kids to a planning commission meeting. So that was part of the strategy, but I welcome any and all other ideas on who we should be connecting with and how to reach those people.
And keep track of it and keep publicizing it, because inevitably at the end, people say, "Oh, I never, you guys didn't even talk to the community." And it's like, well, we did 87 events over 2 years, and it's just tough. Like, I don't know how you get around it, but I saw at least, one resident walk in with the postcard today into this room, and I was like, well, that worked. There he is.
Before we wrap up, One other question that I wanted to get at is if anyone has a particular program or project that they think would help move forward an aspect of the vision that you wanted to put on the table now, I'd love to hear that.
I'm not sure what that question means.
Well, I mean, I think green spaces,
Oh, I see.
you're getting at that. I think I heard some really interesting ideas about creatively incorporating green spaces, connecting that to like the, you know, that's, I guess I'm asking if you have like a pet project or something that you think would really be germane to, you know, the purview of the planning commission that you think, you know, should be explored through the process, if you have an idea. It's not a requirement. I just thought, we didn't want to pass something off.
The green space for sure. And I think back to the community center and how divisive that is and what a crown jewel it is for us. Even it was over budget, it took longer than expected, yada, yada. When you go over there right now, that place is hopping. Like you sometimes can't even find a seat. It's so busy in there with students studying and mahjong being played and like great, you know, stuff I never would have considered. So, you know, I'd like to see more of those sorts of places around town, not just downtown, but elsewhere as well. Whether it's, you know, renovation of Grand Park, which, you know, has been discussed for a long time. And I think some of that work has now been done, or along El Camino, you know, we've got a lot of housing going in at El Camino, and it's very difficult to find land to put parks on. So like, what do we do for the, you know, hundreds of new families that are going to be moving in along there? Those are some of the things I would hope to look at.
Thank you very much.
Great.
All right, thank you guys.
Next up.
All right, well, we do a little switch. So next we'll invite the Complete Streets Commission up. We'll need to establish a form. Commissioner Schneider? Commissioner Schneider? Commissioner?
Yep.
Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Ra?
Here.
Vice Chair Helmut?
Here.
And Chair? Yeah. We do have a quorum. Would you maybe mind introducing yourself?
I'm Tony Lee. I've lived in Los Altos 20 years now, and I live in the best part of Los Altos. Grand Park. Yeah.
Tommy Schneider for 27 years. Living south of Los Altos.
Wes Hummels. I'm vice chair on the commission. Been on the past 3 years. Been in Los Altos, living in Los Altos since 2015, and live near downtown, just across San Antonio, a couple blocks out here. So I was able to walk today.
Clara Roa. I've lived in Los Altos since 2011, and it's my first year on the commission, and I live in North Los Altos near El Camino.
I'm Suresh Venkataraman. This is my second term on the commission. I've been in Los Altos since 2005, and I live on one of the busier streets, about a mile from me.
I'm Steve Katz, and I moved to Los Altos in 1975. You can do the math if you're good at it. And this is my second term. I've lived in several of the best parts in Los Altos. I haven't seen a part that's not a best part. So we love Los Altos, and that's why we moved here. We have two brand new next door neighbors who came here because they love Los Altos. And my goal would be to make sure that the neighbors that move here 5 years from now love it as much as we do. So I think this is an important process.
You know what I'm going to do this time? maybe to make a more efficient use of time. And I'm going to combine the first two questions. And so why don't you tell me, and again, you can think of it particularly from a transportation perspective or a bigger perspective. What are the aspects or features of Los Altos that should be preserved through the general plan? And what are some of the challenges that the community is going to be facing, particularly from a transportation perspective, but big picture?
From my perspective, the biggest challenge in front of us is that traffic is increasing, always will increase. And we have to somehow figure out how we're going to deal with that. We cannot simply turn down the speed limit and cause congestion everywhere. We cannot pave everything and turn it all into freeways. So what do we do?
Can I just build on that for a second? I think one of our challenges is a little different than the planning commission's, perhaps. I was really, by the way, excited to hear that there's so much concern on the planning commission about issues that we also care about. And I think those are extremely important. But our charter is to make our streets safe. And that's for pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles. And not only for residents, but also for visitors. If you think about the fact that our schools extend beyond Los Altos and that the arteries that go through Los Altos bring lots of people from other jurisdictions, we have to deal with that. And I think that makes the challenge that much more difficult because we're having traffic, not just from our own residents in terms of not only vehicles, but also kids going to school, people that are coming to downtown and want to come to downtown more than they are now. And the planning commission brought up the fact that, you know, there were kids who were living downtown and they worry about them getting across the major arteries. Well, what about all the kids that don't live downtown and want to go downtown from Los Altos High School, from Eagan, from all the other schools, from just the neighborhoods? So, and it's not just downtown, it's to every business district, it's to every park, it's to every school, it's to visit friends. And so that's our number one goal.
Yeah, that was, for me, that was very helpful because you said increased traffic and you built on that and sort of expanded it for me. It's not just traffic from new residents, but it's traffic from people visiting, you know, downtown, it's traffic from school drop-offs. That was helpful context.
So kind of building that too is like, you know, the trade-offs from, you also have like the cut through traffic, nobody's going from school, but they're going from one city to another, but they're using our city streets. And also then have trade-offs of saying how you have the bicyclists, cars, but you also have people losing their parking spaces in front of their houses. And so there's a trade-off. Do you let people park or do you put in bike lanes or, so there's a lot of trade-offs and if it's that thing where everybody says it's great to have homeless, you know, new housing for that, but not in my city. Same thing with the parking and bicycling. It's great to have it, but I don't want to have it necessarily in front of my house or even putting in streetlights because like you're saying, with no streetlights and no sidewalks is back in the 1950s. There should be more of those kind of things for safety, but then how do you go about doing that too? Having that domain is probably not the right answer.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so when I think about Los Altos, I think this is a great community. And I think a lot of people, you know, I don't know if we can agree on trees, but this is a great place. I think everybody here is here by and large for a reason. And, you know, my wife was raised here. And when we were looking for places that we wanted to kind of settle down, she wouldn't even really entertain many places outside of Los Altos. And I think there's a reason for that. One of the things I think about when I think about features and characteristics as well as challenges, I think other people have mentioned that Los Altos is a place where families live, not exclusively. You know, I think we have multi-generational people without families, older folks, but for sure, I think we've got families, we've got a great school system. And I think that's part of the identity of Los Altos for sure. We've got a lot of parts of the city that serve families really well. When I think about challenges, I think there's an identity of Los Altos that's very family oriented, that we aspire to be, that we don't always reach. And I definitely think when I think about safety, that's a visibility that we have with this commission. And I think the city has done a great job in recent years with making things better. But I think we all see that there's still gaps that we can make better, and gaps where there are safety issues. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the things that I observed is I think that the city has to make challenging trade-offs on budget and funding, and there's challenges in us being able to get grants and funding for things, and those are real. And I don't judge the city for making hard decisions, and there may be better ways to spend marginal money. But what I do see as well is that there are, areas where if we had more ability to direct things towards improvements, we could improve safety. I think that is just true. Folks have mentioned, really appreciate Planning Commission folks bringing up, street issues, safety issues. Folks have mentioned San Antonio and Foothill and ingress and egress into and out of downtown. I think that's very well known, but it's a real issue. And, I don't think I need to overly personalize it, but I have the experience. Our family crosses San Antonio to go into downtown like every day. And every day we have to really coach. I have 5 and 7-year-olds. I have to coach our kids every day to say like, hey, we're going to go very closely together. We have to keep our eyes on each lane of traffic as we go. And, it's sort of like a roll of the dice, whether we feel like people are going to stop or not. And I observe that on the Foothill side as well. I think many people do. And I think that's one of those areas where, there's a lot of people that I think want to come into downtown and make great use of downtown, make great use of Shoup Park, make great use of the community center, the library. And there's challenges in getting there, and there's challenges in getting there safely. That's just one example, and I don't want to belabor it, but you can generalize that a lot. There's plenty of other stuff that we could probably focus on, but we're trying to get folks, obviously Complete Street, we're focused on multimodality, right? We want folks to be safe pedestrians and feel like they can use the streets and have people walking. We want people in bikes, more people in bikes, and feel like they're safe doing that. And we help folks, organize days where they can walk or wheel to school. And I observe that, there are even in areas where the city has actually invested in, we have a Complete Streets master plan, safe routes to school within that, right? And that's from 2021, 22. We have done a lot of work towards implementing that and executing it across the city, especially around schools. Even in those areas where we've had that focus and put resources into it, there's still gaps, there's still work to be done. And I think that we can make things better. And I think we don't always look towards, we have surrounding communities that other folks have mentioned, Mountain View, Palo Alto, Sunnyvale, everything, right? The county. And folks are doing things well in those areas. Not to say, I think Los Altos is its own community. We should continue to have that mindset, but there's no reason why we shouldn't learn from what other folks are doing well and use that. Those are the main things on Complete Street. And I don't want to monopolize folks' time, but I do just I think this is a really important opportunity and moment. And I appreciate that we're updating the general plan. And I think we can make choices that are going to really serve Los Altos for many years, like Steve said. So it's awesome to be here and be able to speak with you guys. Just 1 or 2 other quick points, and then I'll let everybody else talk. So I just heard other folks mention, housing affordability. I just think that's not exactly Complete Streets lane, but I just want to observe that, I think we have an opportunity, to continue to make good choices and maybe make better choices in coming years. If the general plan could serve like housing elements and how we want the city to look, we have, I know that downtown we built some multi-family buildings. We have friends who are teachers at the local schools, live there, and this idea of, we can have folks live in the community with us and be safe and not be priced out. I think these are really important things. as I was walking here earlier today, there's an unhoused couple in a van in the parking lot. And, you know, I think there's a feeling in Los Altos that we don't have an unhoused community or don't have as much as surrounding communities. And I think we need to be realistic that we do, and in and closely around Los Altos. And we should be thinking about doing things in this community that help people, you know, strengthen the safety net for people. I think there's both immediate and long-term things that we can do. And I think it's important for the general plan to contemplate that. Yeah, those are the main points for me. Sorry for going long, but yeah.
It's hard to wear both hats, right? Like the Completed Streets Commission and just the general view about this general plan. But you know, building on what everybody has said, even what the Planning Commission said, I think two things can be true. You know, one of the great things about Los Altos is that it is family friendly, that it's smallish enough, right? That we all feel like it's a community. And at the same time, some of the largest cities in the world that are family friendly and bike friendly are very big, right? So I do think that we can be two things. We can be very family friendly and bike friendly and safe and grow, right? Because I think growth is unavoidable, right? And it's not only unavoidable, but it's like wanted and needed, right? So I don't think that to be able to be family friendly and bike friendly and safe, we have to remain small. That I don't think that's necessarily the case. And that's why when I hear, you know, when you're talking about what are some of the challenges and of all this conversation, I agree with some of the members of the Planning Commission, which for me, the word village is problematic, right? Because we are in Silicon Valley, we're surrounded by large cities and we're growing, right? Especially someone who lives along El Camino corridor, you realize that we are not a village, just we're not, right? Or San Antonio, we're not a village, right? So we need to then prepare and plan for that, right? Not for 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, because it is, again, it's happening, right? We're growing. And I do remember from one of the meetings, it was, I think like a month ago, there was a city council meeting. It was one of the long meetings that ended like at midnight. So I don't remember all the details, but I listened to the whole thing because they were interviewing all the commissions and I was new, so I'm still a good student. So I listened to the whole thing. And at the very end, I think the council members were trying to decide, okay, what are our goals for the year, or goals, even I think for this plan. And Mayor Meadows said that one of the things that she really wants to highlight is the idea of embracing change, right, as a theme, right, for the year and for her term, or for the city. And I hope I'm not misquoting her, but I remember that from that meeting. So I do think that there is a key challenge, and the opportunity here is to embrace change, right? Because it's happening. And at the Completed Streets Commission level, I do think we have to prepare for density and we have to prepare for more traffic. And it's not only car traffic, but people traffic, bike traffic, pedestrians, right? So if we really plan around it, then it's going to be way easier to manage in the future. And that includes, you know, thinking outside the box. Do I need to park in front of my house? Do we really can live in a city without sidewalks forever, right? Everywhere, or with no streetlights, right? So those are hard ones, right? And I know for a lot of the community will be, but again, I don't think we're a small city anymore. I think we're growing, and it's not. It's going to happen. It's going to change.
I like what you said about two things can be true, and I feel like what I'm trying to get from all of these conversations is what. So people say, you know, they like the village feel, but what aspects of the village can we preserve while recognizing that things are not going to stay the same? So I heard the village has to do with knowing your neighbors and having gathering places and like getting around safely. All of these things are sort of aspects of the village and so anyway, that's interesting. I like what you say about two things can be true, because I think we can take aspects of the things that we like and build them into the general plan. Preserve them while recognizing that things are not going to stay the same.
I think we recognize that villages change. And technology is changing our village significantly. And for example, if you went to our high schools 5 years ago, you would not have seen more than 1 or 2 e-bikes, if you saw any. If you go to the high school today, half the bike, maybe not half, but almost, are taken up by electric bicycles, right, of one sort or another. And so people are getting around in a different way, whether or not we plan for it. And part of what is happening is that a lot of the development that's taking place doesn't comprehend the infrastructure requirements that would support those in a way that the people of Los Altos would like to see them supported. When you live in Los Altos or move to Los Altos, you expect to have an infrastructure that's commensurate with the lifestyle that you've signed up to. And the challenge for us is trying to help the city get to that infrastructure because the funding and the resources lag the vision. And by the way, I don't know if you've read our Complete Streets Master Plan.
I've browsed it. I haven't read the whole thing yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, that also needs to be updated, just like the general plan. And I'm hoping that in this cycle that we can eventually get to that. Because it's really, there, you know, we could talk about a lot of different things. Parking, for example, is the same way today that it was 30 years ago by and large, except for critical areas which we've addressed reactively. A lot of our streets, San Antonio Road is just an example of a street that serves a huge purpose in our community. It's one of the few arteries that we are fully responsible for, meaning not VTA, the county. It's not like El Camino, it's not like Foothill Expressway. And we were fortunate enough to get a grant to improve pedestrian and bike safety. And we benefited by traffic calming because PG&E and the water company have done major work through San Antonio, which has slowed traffic down and made it safer. It's also left in need of major repairs. And so that's going to be a challenge just to do that one artery. And to get the funding to do all that will prevent us from doing certain other things. So, and the only reason I'm bringing that up is because it's great to be visionary, but where the biggest challenge is, I think, or one of the biggest, is to actually have funding and resources to accomplish what we envision as a city and to bring not just a feature in place, but to bring the infrastructure to make that feature accessible, safe for everybody who needs and wants to use it. And I think that the general plan needs to comprehend that.
I love that you've just done a great springboard right into my next question, which is about, assets and opportunities. You talked about San Antonio as kind of a unique asset and an opportunity. You've talked about technology as, an asset or an opportunity that can be leveraged.
And I think opportunities, one opportunity in San Antonio is an example of that, is that at the time, and that was what, 4 years ago or 3, the city reached out and grabbed a bunch of federal dollars, that have been slow to come because of a bunch of things outside our control. But the city is going to need to find funding resources. And whether, other cities charge for parking, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. I don't have an opinion on that. But there might have to be other ways to raise money, private, public partnerships, a whole bunch of things. But we're going to need to have additional resources in order to accomplish what we want to.
Yeah, no, I think I want to piggyback on what Commissioner Katz was saying. Kind of stepping back, we recognized a lot of the issues the city faced at that time and will be facing when we went through the master plan about 5 years ago. And I think the challenges we're facing is how do we execute even that?
Yes.
Right. And so what did we do? So we scoped it down to say, okay, let's focus on safe routes to school. Our goal was to create a circulation plan where multimodal transformation, that is people walking, biking, making it a vibrant community where you can connect downtowns to parks, to schools. The vision kind of exists, and I think that's, looking forward, makes sense for us to look to, but the key part of the planning is how do we get there? You know, what are the priorities and what is the mechanism for us to accomplish this? And I think some of the discussion the previous commission happened. I think really we need to look forward to the future rather than think about what we've done in the past and almost take the approach of let's build it and they'll come. Right? It's a question of, I think Commissioner Schneider was saying about putting bike lanes. Now, if you put in bike lanes, residents can park. If residents park, then, bike lanes or safety issues arise. So this is a challenge. And I think we as city recognize that create a vibrant community, to create connections among all parts of the city. We really want more transportation of people driving, walking, biking, all come together, and that kind of creates that connection. I think that's a long-term vision. I think as a city, it's critical that we look into it because that also addresses the issue of when you're growing, you have infrastructure there, so you're bringing more diversity into the community at all economic levels, all form of diversification. So I think having those diverse mode of transportation is critical. Specific to safe routes to school, I just say I think we have a very robust school community. I think a lot of the school patrons, school students, parents, they all want to bike or walk to school. But the biggest issue we all hear from them is it's not safe. So we don't want to send our kids by either bike or walk to school. So as a commission, we've been focusing a lot to address it, but we don't have the tools or we don't have sort of an overarching saying this is what we're going to sort of spread across the city. How do we do that? I think a lot of us are involved in schools to try to get kids to bike and walk. And we have other programs. We work with nonprofits to get these kind of programs going forward. But I think we really need as sort of a general plan saying this is an important vision and a goal for the city to accomplish.
Right. Yeah. I think that somebody said it earlier, but if the whole process of the general plan can actually be to involve the citizens in a city and help to begin to build consensus around certain visions, that would make an enormous difference. One of the things that we struggle with is that the amount of people that attend commission meetings is hen's teeth. And so a lot of what we do is done in support of the staff and to try to help our vision work with a staff that is maxed out in terms of their resources and challenged with the amount of funding that they have. And so as a consulting group, if you can bring some energy into that process, it would help the city enormously.
Anything else to say about assets that can be
Well, one of the
leveraged?
challenges that is with a school district, the city doesn't control who goes to what school. And I didn't realize that until 5 years ago, that the school districts can mandate to the city what kids go to what schools. And that's why Los Altos High School doubled, I understand it's they doubled the number of students there, but they didn't increase any parking. So a lot of stuff just spilled onto the streets, and that caused a lot of residents. But the challenge is we don't work with the school district or they don't work with us, and I'm not sure how you can resolve that anyway.
Right.
But it's just another challenge.
I mean, I think it's the same is probably true with other cities too, right?
Yeah, the school district covers multiple cities, and we don't have a lot of control over what they do.
I was going to talk about assets and opportunities. I can think of three. The first one is very controversial. Breathe. But I think we have three: land, South Los Altos, and we do have the opportunity for very creative ways for green spaces, right? So land, I do think, yes, we feel like we don't have enough land, but look around the city hall. Just FYI, if we want more people living and working in Los Altos, being able to walk to downtown, creative ways to rethink how the type of village we want to be, then the opportunity is there. South Los Altos, I think we spend so much time talking about downtown and San Antonio that we forget that South Los Altos is there, and there might be opportunities to do something in some of the business parks, or I don't know, create spaces so that the people have other places to go. And yeah, definitely we can be creative about ways to create green spaces, parking that will make the town feel like a village even as we grow. Those would be my 3 assets and opportunities.
I would add something, Clara. I think that's really well said. One thing we observe, we're close to downtown, and there's a lot of vibrancy in downtown. We have these like First Fridays, we have the farmers market. A lot of people come in, and having kids in the school district for a few years, you just kind of know everybody, see everybody, and it's very communal, very fun. We do summer concert series. I would love to see more of that be dispersed across like hubs in the rest of Los Altos. Like, you know, Clara mentioned South Los Altos, but I think Loyola Corners, Rancho. I think there's a real opportunity for the city to bring more of that and the community to come around that. That should be like great wins for the city. So I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think the way the city is designed is actually an asset because you do have neighborhoods organized. Yeah. There is a focal point, and then it's a question of how can we take that and make those focal points serve the community even more. And that involves transportation, it involves amenities, it involves green space, all kinds of things. Absolutely. So
I think, you know, there's kind of a dead fish that we should talk about, which is that there's a perception that the attention and the funding is more driven by North Los Altos than South Los Altos. And, you know, for personally in my family, we use both recreation centers, the new community center and the one at Grant. And the one at Grant is tired, yet it has a higher participation level in terms of people by a lot than the community center does. And there's a feeling that I think is justified that it really needs to be enhanced, and it hasn't been. And so, I mean, those are the kinds of things that contribute to an overall sense of a lack of getting what people need to have in that part of town. And that's not a complete streets issue, that's a higher level issue.
I'm looking at the time. I think we're coming up on the half-hour period. Any final thoughts on vision or specific projects that you have in mind?
Steve kind of brought up something. I'll say something really quickly around getting to the idea of like assets and opportunities. Yeah, like there's a bunch of and green space. There's a bunch of great parks around town, and I think in a lot of cases those parks are not necessarily in disrepair. But I think if you look around other parts of the Bay Area, there's a lot of resources going into modernizing parks and having facilities there. You know, I think just there's some great parks around town. Grant Park, you look at Merrymead Park, Mackenzie, all around town. And I think those could be leveraged as assets a lot more. And I think even you look at like Shoot Park and, you know, I know we want to, you know, get stuff going all around town, but just an example of, you know, I think some of the facilities there are probably 100 years old or close to that, right? And these things could absolutely be things that draw people to the community, and we could rethink. I mean, you don't have to build another community center, but folks have rightly praised that as a project that I think when that went up, I personally was like, I hope people use that. And it wasn't clear, but it looks like it's absolutely getting leveraged in wonderful ways. And we should be creative about ways that we can preserve that green space and also enhance it in ways that people can come and make great use out of it and liven and make more vibrant those parts of town. I think there's great, maybe somewhat dormant assets and great opportunities there. Yeah, that's it.
I think just a sort of this went to another commission. You'll hear from the Environmental Commission the next meeting, but I think it's good to know that one of the biggest impact that has on our climate action goals is transportation and getting people into bikes and walking.
Yeah.
And so that dovetails into our vision for where we want to be in 2020. What is our contribution? What is the city's contribution to equity and so on? So there's another aspect to consider as we what circulation activity in the city looks like.
Right. Great. Yes.
Another urgent opportunity in front of us is working with the county on Foothill Expressway. They have a plan in front of us that definitely bears looking into very closely. It has major impacts on how Foothill will be dealt with in the future, and not all of it's good.
Thank you all. These are great ideas. Appreciate the input.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Since the finance commission is next, they'll come up with the money. But the finance commission.
So we'll need to establish a quorum. Commissioner. Yes. Chair Odo. Oh, did you?
Let's start with some quick introductions, like just introduce yourself, your connection to Los Altos quickly.
I'm Deepak Jain. I've been in Los Altos since 2010. And yeah, I live south of Vermont. And lived in Los Altos since 2020. So I'm a resident. There's it. My first term on any commission. And I live near Rancho.
Scott Autos. I've been here since 1995 when I moved. I was 10 years old. But I've been here 30 years and live near Almond Elementary.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, so I think maybe we'll try and again, of course, you can answer these questions through the lens of the finance commission, but also bigger picture as well. Like some of the questions are easier to answer through that angle if you think about challenges, perhaps opportunities, but bigger picture comments so well. So why don't we start with that, like that combined question? What do you see as Los Altos, defining features and characteristics, and the flip side, what are some of the challenges that you think the community is going to be facing in the next 10 to 20 years?
Yes, sir. Okay. I think I think it's been pretty clear that the community is what's important in Los Altos. We all know our neighbors and they're able to run into other stores and so there is that very much a sense of community where it may not be as strong in other cities as it is here. So it's a great place to live. I mean, it's a very comfortable place to live. Walking is good, other than you have to cross major streets like everybody was talking about. I think the future, though, a lot of people are talking about funding and money and what we need to be doing in the future. So let me put my financial commission hat on here and really say that we need to take a look at what our future funding is going to be for the city. Because we're very narrow in our funding, right? Most all of it comes from property taxes. Some comes from sales taxes. I think in 2024 we had a 7% reduction in sales tax for the city. So I think the city is well run from a financial standpoint. What the current city council is doing manages that funds really well. But there's, I think, some yellow lights out in the future for the city in terms of all the funding and the lack of diversity around this funding. And all the things that we heard earlier about what we need, what we like to do, those all things take money, right? And so one of the critical things is how do we start to diversify our revenue coming in? The other couple of things that are kind of for me on what we need to be doing is really around financial transparency. So this commission has a vision around that any citizen can go online and see where every penny is spent, and that it's very easy, very clear, very transparent. There's no mystery, right? In terms about doing that. The other thing that our vision is around competency and having what in the corporate world we call KPIs, key process indices, and being able to compare our city to what other cities that are similar to us can do. And so that we have a clear view of what we're doing well, maybe what we're not doing so well, we can improve on, and really be able to have that whole view of that. And the last thing that I've kind of been championing is really around communication, being able to send out budgets, what the city's doing to everybody in the city, so everybody has a view of everything that's going on there. So it's not just about having a website that gives that transparency, but it's also being proactive and going out to the community and saying, hey, these are what we're spending on, this is our budget, this is where our revenues are coming from. And Los Altos is pretty well off, but it's not great, right? And we have things out there like pension funds, right? So we're doing a pretty good job of managing all that, but a few bad years and the CalPERS bumps up the discount rates, then we're like, oh, how are we going to fund all this? That's my humble opinion.
Good ideas.
Good. So some of the defining features most out this for me and my family are neighbors too as well. We've been here a short 5 years. We were shopping different areas up and down Los Altos, but one of the things that I look for my family, I have 2 teenagers now. You count the basketball courts on our street when you the basketball hoops on our street. You didn't have any of that, right? Something to say. And it leads to a sense of community. When kids are out playing, neighbors are out playing, they're out in the streets, having a good time. We talk a lot about green spaces, having more parks, but it's right in our front doors. And preserving that aspect of it, I know we talk about R1 and all this stuff, and I don't know how much of it we can preserve without the elements and that kind of thing, but I think it's an important part of why it looks here. It's important for all the folks up and down our street and in our neighborhood. Seven hoops is what we have on our street. We can play multiple full court games. And I remember when we look at this house that we live in now, there was a wiffle ball game happening, but right there on the street, on the cul-de-sac, and we don't see that these days. Mm-hmm. And you can call it toxic nostalgia if you want, but I didn't have that growing up. I want it for my kids. It's not nostalgia if I didn't have it. What do you think? But that when you're growing up is and I think it's the right way to do it for our kids. They ride their bikes to school now. We didn't used to do that before. They're here in the local schools. We all participate. The communities participate. The neighbors know each other. We're there for cover games. We're throwing brunches up and down our street, neighborhood block parties, things like that. But having opportunities for that and realizing that those opportunities are right there in our front, just right outside our front doors, I think is an important part of Los Altos community.
Yeah. I like that. And I wonder if there's also ways to use technology to bring people closer together. You talked about, communicating effectively, but maybe using that as I take what you're saying, but playing wiffle ball in the street or basketball or something just breaks people out. But are there ways to also leverage technology to create opportunities and bring people together? That's interesting. It seems like Los Altos is a very digitally connected community. And so how is that an opportunity to be leveraged to try and preserve like an aspect of
Can bring together in terms of ideas or exchanging information?
Yeah.
I think some of that is probably already happening, like next door and the forums like that, but maybe.
The thing that I actually think is that how can we get away from some of that digital stuff, right? And because I think the digital has a tendency, especially I'll speak for myself, to really sit on the computer and do my interacting that way. And I think if we can create spaces where people are interacting, you know, as human beings to each other. I know that when we have our block parties, right, everybody loves the block parties. You know, we all get together and it's a great time. There's no technology. And I think that some of the kids these days also are trying to get away from that, right? They're trying to create spaces where they don't have a lot of digital stuff around them. So maybe if we can, you know, think in that way, the opposite.
Right. It's certainly important technology piece of it as an infrastructure, like community center without Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly.
Poorly used, I think. A lot of folks were there studying and having the libraries, it kind of sucks too. But I think Chair Otis is right. One of the other draws of Los Altos for million families, two working parents, busy, right? We're within the Silicon Valley and things are hyper busy all the time. But Los Altos home is home and it's a refuge from all of that, right? Really compressed. And it feels good. We don't need to be hustle and bustle. If we can find that, we can go, if we wanted to, we can drive downtown, for example, right? And get a little bit more hustle and bustle. We can go to Mountain View or another downtown somewhere, another Porto Park. And find some more hustle if we wanted to. But Los Altos is home to us and it's a refuge.
There was an article I read in New York Times probably a decade ago, and it was an article about something else, but it described Los Altos as a sleepy bedroom community with leafy streets and all that. That's, I guess, aligns with what you're saying, that, you know, it's refuge, it's home. I've lived in Los Altos for 15 plus years and I love it. And I think there's some unique character to Los Altos, which is hard to put your finger on, but it's worth preserving. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's, you know, R1 housing, that's part of it. And we may not have that much control, but the small town feeling, and I've lived in a bigger city before and I didn't get that feeling there, and I get that so close. So that's the plus, but a couple of the things that have been mentioned before also resonated with me in terms of challenges. Somebody brought up the fact that, you know, the city is graying, and I don't know if there is data justifying that, but anecdotally, I'm graying. When we moved to Los Altos, we had 2 kids who were going to schools here, and now they are grown up and we are empty nesters. So multi-generational city, I think, whatever we can do to accomplish that, because having that vibrancy of, you know, families, I mean, like whole range, basically, age groups from very young couples to people with young kids, people with older kids, and then grown-ups, older adults and all that. So I think something that can be done to accomplish that is good. And another thing is now the financial part, which is, I think, what Commissioner Scott Ottos also referred to, which is diversifying our revenue base. And this may, in some ways, run counter to, you know, what our other goals are, but are there opportunities for us to, you know, attract commercial companies or offices to the city? The retail space that we have, how can we make it more attractive or desirable or greater number of transactions? Because some of that sales tax does flow into the city. We always can use more money. I mean, we have heard about this before, that, you know, there are projects we want to do, or there are things that, the services that maybe city should offer to the residents, but it's not able to offer today. We have an unfunded liability pension issue. So
The solution is not to cut the expenses necessarily everywhere, but the solution is to see what can we do to increase the top line. And whether it is in terms of being a more attractive destination, perhaps for, in our downtown or other commercial areas, for people even outside, more restaurants, more attractions. Or bringing in businesses to have, offices in the city and, I don't know, payroll taxes, etc. So that would be the other challenge that I would bring up.
Just to leverage off something you said about the grain aspect of it. I'm not sure what the city itself can do on it, but there's some structural issues around, property taxes, capital gains that cause people not to move, right? It's much more possible for me and my wife to stay in our house for the rest of our life than it is to go sell it and move somewhere else. So I think there's some of that infrastructure issues in terms of, if nobody's going to move, we're all going to be getting more and more gray, and are we going to have that diversity that can happen that we all want to have? But I'm worried about us having the tax laws and benefits of these.
Yeah, but if we do have opportunities to build multifamily housing and attract and make them more affordable and attract people who are earlier in their lives and may not be able to afford more expensive housing, but they can afford condominiums or townhouses, etc. Maybe we are able to have the cycle still keep on going.
Anything more to say? Like, I'm interested to hear about the diversification of revenue sources, for example. And maybe that gets into the more specific last question about specific programs or projects. But what are some other potential strategies? I mean, I know you've talked about attracting businesses or, interestingly, increasing the number of transactions. That's
Sales 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sales tax is probably one of the biggest opportunities, but getting what we're saying that getting the more businesses down here to get some of that kind of tax revenue coming too would be really good. But the sales tax is clearly declining. I don't think people are buying in shops as much as they used to anymore.
Yeah,
and so that's definitely causes a lot of constraints on us continuing to be able to grow the revenue growth. I don't think it's an easy solution.
I don't want to maybe sound like I'm anti-change in my comments, but I think there's places for it. Like I think downtown can use an uplift.
Yeah.
Both there's many great businesses there. There's also proud in ways too. I think we all love different aspects of it, but there's still even now there's still a lot of vacant space available. There's certainly a lot of money here in Los Altos that we spend. People are coming through here all the time, and there should be a way to have more vibrancy within downtown, other than on First Fridays or when there's events. It's otherwise quite sleepy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I work in Palo Alto and I have Palo Alto downtown envy. Like I want Los Altos downtown to be also much more vibrant.
I think you'd be better than Palo Alto.
And very
what I've heard is anecdotally, a lot of the business owners downtown are older themselves and are going to be retiring. And so, maybe there's an opportunity there as that generation turns over, as people sell businesses or just close their businesses, like what to think about, what other things could come into place downtown that could contribute to that vibrancy.
Well, commercial real estate's been difficult everywhere, right? That's not just the Los Altos thing. So from the mega trend standpoint, what is going to be replacing these things? I don't think anybody knows yet, right? What's going to be happening? Who's going to be doing that? Is it going to be a bunch of AI startups downtown now?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the trend.
Or is it arts and culture? I mean, I think more like, they say restaurants are the new anchor in a retail shopping center, but arts and culture too gives you a reason to come out of the house, to not watch Netflix or order DoorDash, but, to go out and, see something or see a show or participate in some sort of art or something. Interesting. What about my bigger picture question that we sort of touched on it with all the groups, but didn't like explicitly come out. But maybe I can ask you because we do have a little time here. What's your vision for what Los Altos will be like in 10 to 20 years? And I think part of that's like what should we keep, but also what's not here that you'd like to see here.
Yeah, I really like some of the thoughts about thinking the future, right? Not going to the past and thinking about how have we always done these things. And I think that investments in the downtown as well as these other hubs across Los Altos to continue to kind of create community is the right answer, right? And being able to, so that for me, the vision is that we continue to invest in the infrastructure that allows the community to kind of come together. And kind of joked about getting rid of technology and being away from technology, but not really. And being able to create these spaces where people just interact with each other. And the thing is that things are going to change, right? So housing is going to become more dense. There's going to be more people here. And the question is, how do we manage that? We know it's coming, even though a lot of people don't want it to come. We know it is coming. So what do we need to do?
I think if I were to look at it purely from like residential or commercial, I think the residential part of Los Altos is great. And there are parts of the housing element, I think that are great. Density is coming in. It's going to be lower income housing. That's great too. All those things we need, and some of those will be anyways. But really, if I'm looking forward at Los Altos, what I would want it to be is, I think the commercial aspects of Los Altos need an uplift. Both the stores, the businesses that are here, and then also just I know I think there's hesitancy to change a lot of the look and feel of say like Rancho or down like buildings in downtown, but it needs an upgrade. It feels old, and that there is a charm to that, but I think it's feeling older. There's a difference between old and vintage and decrepit. So maybe some of the decrepit can go.
I'll give a little bit of a glib answer to the question. So vision is what the destination will be, not necessarily how you get there.
Right.
And in my mind, I mean, our vision should be the model city for other cities in the Bay Area to look forward to look to. How exactly do we accomplish that? Well, that's what we have to figure out. I think we have a lot going for us. I mean, it's easy to criticize things and point out flaws, etc. But we live in a great city. I mean, we are all here because we love this city. And I would want to make sure that, quarter century from now, that's still true. The residents feel that way, that we still love this city and it's awesome. It's great. And other cities feel that Los Altos is one of the places we want to become. Like how we get there, that's what we have to figure out.
Right. Well, I think we just need to measure Los Altos envy. So.
We look different. And we have neighbors like Virginia, Mountain View, surrounded. So people here also live here. Huge exodus out of the numbers, so maybe there is huge exodus out of Los Altos. I think it's still a very desirable place to live because of all the great things that are here. And if it stands out for those reasons, great. Better for our tax base, I guess. Exactly. To be able to afford all these programs.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
taking public.
Yes, so we're going to open it up to public comments. We have one card at this time, I believe. If anyone else would like to provide public comment, could you please turn in a card? And I want to clarify that the updated council norms no longer allow seating of time, so it'll be 3 minutes per speaker. I'm going to reposition the screen. Give me just one moment. So speakers will be captured in the video. So Nancy Martin was hoping to see time. Would you like to give a comment? This is in the March 24th, I believe, 2026 council norms. So we have John there.
I'll speak after John, if that's okay.
Yes.
Without wearing last name.
Yeah, certainly.
Good evening, I'm John Bear. I spent nearly 30 years in Los Altos. I've been on the planning commission for more than a decade. And I actually was involved in the first plan update in 2002. And I made a fundamental mistake. I never looked at the old plan. And I'm guessing most of the people in this room that gave you comments haven't looked at the plan from 2002. Okay. Plan was 1987 through that. There's a lot of stuff that's still appropriate and relevant. And I think some of the comments that we should throw out the baby with the bathwater are, are uninformed comments if people haven't actually bothered to look at other documents first. And the commissions don't necessarily represent the viewpoints of the community. They represent the viewpoints of the city council. And I think there's a big disconnect there. Let's think about why people move to Los Altos. Toxic nostalgia, Mayberry dead. People move here because they want Mayberry. And as somebody who owns a 120-year-old house, I don't want to decrep it, but I want to preserve the things that are good and update the things that are appropriate. And unfortunately, we seem to use an axe, not a scalpel in this town. And that's unfortunate. There's tremendous distrust of our city and our city government. There's a recent poll, 80% of the residents want to say in what happens to our downtown and downtown park. That says there's miscommunication, lack of information, and misinformation that's being spread by various people, including some people in this room, and that's truly unfortunate. Parks are a destination. I live close to downtown. I have to cross 2 major roads to get to a park. So if people who live in downtown have to cross 2 roads or 1 road to get to a park, parks are destinations. So, we need to be realistic. And I'm not insensitive to the fact that we need more parks. We need to update parks. Grant Park is an embarrassment to this city. And yet we're going to spend $20 million on something downtown when we have more parks per capita downtown than any other part of the town. The reality is, as we age, our needs and requirements change. And so, yes, we want things that meet the needs of 35-year-olds, but in fact, the reality is those 35-year-olds are going to be my age at some point. And, so we need a balance here. And I think that's unfortunately what sometimes is missing. Thank you very much.
Nancy Martin.
Well, I was prepared to give John my time because I value what he has to say. I would just like to say that I have spoken to more residents in the last 2 months, gathering signatures, putting an initiative on the ballot, and residents are so mad. They have no idea why this is happening. I know tonight is a different kind of meeting, but he's right. Our commissions are out of touch. everyone is out of touch in this council. They don't represent the people. And that's the whole question. We elected them to represent us, but they don't represent us. And no one can understand why this is happening. And I would just like the council to stop what they're doing and engage with the residents, because they feel unheard, they're frustrated, and they're so grateful that someone is coming in and listening to them. So that's all I have to say. There's just so much of a disconnect that I don't even know where to start. Asking the people would be a good start. Thank you.
So you're talking about downtown park?
I'm talking about everything in the city.
The general plan?
Everything, general plan, everything. Right. Yeah.
How many people are showing up?
Yeah.
Alice Foster? Foster?
Yeah, don't have anything organized to say. But I've lived here since 1991, and I still feel like a newcomer, because there's an overriding perception that's always been here, that there are powers that be that make all the decisions. And I'm a person traditionally who gets involved. And so I do pretty much know what's going on, and I make an effort. But I think, and I was very impressed with everything that the commissioners had to say, because I feel like that they have a good handle on a wide range of aspects that we're not really addressing, because we are such a diverse community. And it's not just, I thought of San Francisco, which is where I first lived a long time ago, 50 plus years ago, and how they're still struggling. But one of their strengths is the fact that they are a large city with many villages, many neighborhoods. They're neighborhood based. So we have a model for that, and they have a lot of trouble making decisions about anything. It's very difficult to address the diverse interests, yet we all want them. And I actually think that the only theme that came to me, lots of little things, and I could go on because people who know me know I talk, but not in an organized fashion. That I agree with what you said. I'm an involved person, and I never realized that this park thing had come to a place where we were going to have to make decisions. I participated to a large extent in all the visioning that happened. I can't even remember how many years ago it happened. And it was very good. People got involved, but then nobody knew what was happening. And I assumed that people were working on it. And I feel like that what we're dealing with right now, I understand what a general plan is and all of that, but I feel like that we're dealing with all of the issues where our differences among our age groups, our economic status, people who think Los Altos is a community of rich people are crazy. But we reflect what's happened in the whole US. We have extreme wealth in this community at all ages, and as well as very modest incomes. But I do like the emphasis on the community spirit. And all I could think is that we all kind of admire going to Barcelona, and that was mentioned. I have a daughter who lives in Paris. We all like European cities. We see that Los Altos is at the end. I'm just going to say my comment, and I will end it, is that I think the underlying theme of this general plan is that we should be about making connections.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Yep.
Richard Simmons is our last speaker.
Well, I appreciated being here tonight. I'm a member of the committee. I've been a resident here since 1981. And I love the city. It's interesting hearing you folks talking about changing it, about improving it. I think this is great. I do recognise that I thought this should be a private meeting. I got a notice with the door. I got to go, but I got to get here on time because it's going to be crowded out. Unfortunately not. And this is, I don't know, what's a problem that has got to be addressed. So I hope you folks, listening, keep up with this in future. But it is great to, you're trying involvement and we need it. And people, I think everybody in Los Altos, in one way or another, loves Los Altos and wants to have an input. But my little couple of inputs, and I don't know how many seconds I got left. It is some interesting point that came up tonight. Linking, different point like talk about we are diverse. We have different nodes within the city. South Los Altos. We've got Loyola corners, different hubs, and in fact, this affects transportation, folks. There is a line connecting them called Foot Expressway. There are ways, if we talk about the future, of using transport alternatives to link these more. One event that happened since it started, I guess, was COVID, and we had we see the transformation in many cities, in Castro Street and so on, and people love. I think that we are converging on, as you mentioned, the continental idea of a Zocalo, of a town square. Of people where, it doesn't need to be needed. People want to see each other. They want to have different places at a place where they could, they see what's going on. Talk about it, so on. And I think we've got 3 Zocalos potentially here. We got downtown, and we got Loyola corners, and we got Moncho, maybe Grant Park area, and that maybe that could link them together, and that brings in transportation. There's a discussion about parks. We got beautiful parks, Shell Park, we got Lincoln Park, we got, and it's deadly trying to get across to them. Can you expect people with chairs?
Sure, your time is up.
Time's up, okay.
Thank you.
But that is again a transportation thing. And the future, I think, probably will be people movers, electric people, think a bit creatively. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that is it for public speakers, unless last call, anyone else? No, okay, well, I think that we're getting to our wrap-up time now. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. City staff, Andrew from Dynabatia, commissioners, and of course, members of the public. We really appreciate you coming out. I do want to highlight that this is, we're in the early stages of the general plan update. So we've had a variety of different ways that we're reaching out to the community. And in our experience, some members of the community feel comfortable attending public meetings and providing feedback that way. And other members of the community prefer to, feel more comfortable providing feedback in other manners. So we're trying to sort of provide a broad range of opportunities for the community to provide their input. That being said, we're doing our best to get the word out, but if I could leave you all with maybe a call to action, if you can inform your neighbors, your friends, members of the community that this is happening, that would be really helpful for us. We have a website for the general plan update. It's just Los Altos GPU for generalplanupdate.com. There's a lot of information there already, and we will continue to update it as there are additional opportunities to provide public input, both in a public meeting, more formal setting, and in other more informal settings. Just to highlight, we do have an online survey that's going to be open for about another week through the end of April. We've received, I think, 450 responses on that survey so far. At our pop-up events, we've probably engaged with a couple hundred individuals. And then at our open house a couple weeks ago, we got a lot of really good feedback from about another 100 or so individuals. So yeah, we're really trying to cast a broad net and hear from the community. This is going to be your plan. So yeah, we'd love it if you can help us spread the word. With that, we will be hosting another study session next Monday, 6 p.m. For the remaining city commissions, with the exception of historical, who unfortunately was not able to achieve a quorum. So we're going to consider alternative means, that maybe another meeting. And as that is decided, the website will be updated with the appropriate information. And as Andrew mentioned, just a reminder, the vision and guiding principles will go to the Planning Commission in June for consideration, and then in City Council for July, and that will serve as sort of the foundation for the next step of the process. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:10 p.m. and thank you all for attending.